Now comes the exciting part, and we are ready to begin our first motif. So motif number one is this one you see here, and it's the basis of all of the motifs, whether they're half in this direction, whether they're half in this direction, or whether they're a quarter of the motif. They are all based on this main one, so it makes sense to make these bigger ones first. And you'll see in the pattern that you need to make 12 of these in various different color combinations and shades, and there's a chart in the pattern that tells you what colors to use for which round for which hexagon. That was tricky to say. So rounds 1 through to 5 are different colours in each of the hexagons, and then round 6 will always be this apple green colour, so our F. And then the last 3 rounds are always going to be in your main colour, in your colour A. So if I was you, I'd go and have a look at the chart, figure out your colours, find out, yes, some of them do use a different colour for every single round. So you end up with plenty of ends to weave in, but that's all part of the fun, hey? But some of them do have block colours. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make one with using B in the centre, to show you then how we change colours for another round, but the same principle applies whichever round you're changing colour with. And then I will use this shade, which I think is E, in this version here, and we'll use that for rounds 2 round to 5, and then we'll carry on with the green and then with the white as they are for all of the hexagons. So if you go and grab your chart, have a look, pick one of them to make with me, and then once we've done one together, you can crack on and make all the rest. Now, all of our motifs begin with a magic ring. And if you're anything like me, making a magic ring has taken me years to get right, and I still sometimes don't get it right. So bear with me if I fumble. I don't know why I find them so tricky, but I always have done. So if you are like me and find it tricky, then this is the time to learn. Or you can always do a chain 2 and then work in the second chain from the hook. But if you're making a magic ring, the way I do it is I wrap the yarn around twice, and then I scoop under that first one, grab this second one and twist around. Now that has gone amazingly well compared to how a magic ring normally goes for me, so maybe I shouldn't have said that, maybe I'll cut that bit out. But that is how we make a magic ring, and then you have this bit here that goes up and down, and then you have your working length here. And what we're going to now do is work into that magic ring. We're going to work 12 double crochet stitches, so US double crochet stitches. So yarn over, always find the first one quite fiddly to get in, and I end up using holding the ring rather than the actual stitch here. But do your first one like that, and then give yourself a bit of a tug on your short end, and then you'll be able to work the rest in much easier. So that was our first stitch in there. This is our second, and just keep going until you've got 12 in there. And don't worry about how big the magic ring is. You can pull it a bit tighter if you want to, if you don't want quite so much to play with there. Okay, so now we have the 12 stitches that we need, and what we're going to do is we're going to close our magic ring. We're going to pull on this short end, but I do find it best if you hold on to your stitches here when you pull, and it magically closes it. Hurrah! But as I say, if you find it more comfortable to do a chain 2 and then work in the second chain from the hook, that works beautifully too. Now the next round sees us working in between the stitches. So what I'm going to suggest is that we slip stitch to join in that first one and break our yarn. Now if you're not changing colour, let me show you what you do if you're not changing colour here. What you're going to do is you're going to slip stitch in between the space where we're going to actually put the next colour when we join it, in the space between that first and that second stitch. So that is where we would go, and that's where we're going to go with our blue yarn that we're going to use in a second. But firstly I'm going to break this and pull that end through, And now I'm ready with yarn E, and I'm going to slot in between. You can start anywhere actually, but just as long as you're in between the stitches, not actually in a stitch. So if you were going into a stitch, you would make sure that you had this V across, wouldn't you? You would go so that you've got the top of the V of the stitch, but we're not actually going to do that. We're going to go in between the whole of the stitch here. So don't be frightened to pull it apart and find yourself that space. So pop in between the space, and then you're going to pull up a loop and chain one to get yourself going. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do 2 half double crochet in that same place, so in between those stitches. And then we're going to find the next space between the stitches. So don't be frightened to pull them apart, and you've got that magic ring that's got plenty of give in it still. And we work 2 half double crochet in there. And that's all we're going to do all the way around. We're just going to work in between the stitches, 2 half double crochet. So we had 12 stitches in the first round, and so we'll end up this round having 24. Now here I am at the last space between the last 2 stitches, and I've done 2 half double crochet in there, and then I'm going to slip stitch into that first stitch to join. Now for round 3, we are going to begin with a chain 1, and we're going to work 2 double crochet into that first stitch there that we're already in. And then we're going to chain 1, and then you're going to skip this next stitch, and then you're going to work into the next stitch here, 2 double crochet, and then we'll chain 1, and then you're going to repeat that all the way around. You're going to skip the next stitch and then work 2 double crochet in this next one here, then chain 1, skip the next stitch, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and skip the next stitch. And you might notice that although I'm working into the half double crochet, I'm actually going through all of the parts of the stitch here. So the half double crochet has got all of these loops. You've got your front loop, your back loop, and your third loop. So here I am going through so that there are no loops showing. I know that muddles some people sometimes, but if you would prefer to do it a different way and would prefer to go through different parts of the stitch, then absolutely go for it. You'll just get a different type of ridge and a different type of finish in the center here of your motif. And now all we need to do is slip stitch into that first stitch to join, and that is round 3 complete. Now don't worry if it looks a bit wibbly at this point. It will all need blocking, and we'll need to secure our middle, all of those kind of things. So be nice to yourself. Don't worry if it looks all kind of wobbly at the moment. Now for round 4, what we're going to be doing is aiming to get to this chain 1 space here. So if you're changing colour at this point, you can break your yarn and then just join into a chain 1 space. But what we're going to do is, because we're carrying on this same colour, we're going to slip stitch through to that chain 1 space. And now we're here in that chain 1 space, we need to chain 6. And then we're going to aim for this next chain 1 space, and we're going to pop a slip stitch in there. And then you're going to chain 6, and then slip stitch in the next chain 1 space. You probably get the idea now. Repeat that all the way around. And then slip stitch in the next chain 1 space. Now I do find it, as you're probably seeing, it looks a bit weird how I do it, but I actually hold on to my chain while I'm making that slip stitch, because I find otherwise they go quite loose and quite lax, and actually you want that slip stitch nice and tight. And we work our last chain 6. I couldn't say the word 6 because I was counting 4 in my head. That didn't work well, did it? And then we're going to slip stitch into that first slip stitch that we did there. And then in the pattern you'll see it tells you to break your yarn because most of the time you're actually then changing colour here, but because we're not, we're going to slip stitch into this chain 6 space. So if you're changing colour, then join back into this chain 6 space. Now into this chain 6 space we are going to chain 1, and that doesn't count as anything. We're going to then work 2 half double crochet, 1 double crochet, a chain 2, a double crochet, and then 2 half double crochet into that chain 6 space. Now you see it's like a nice little mirror of itself. So we've got a nice point, it goes up and it comes back down. We've got 2 half double crochet, a double crochet, chain 2, double crochet, 2 half double crochet, and that's all in that chain 6 space. Then in the next chain 6 we are going to work 2 single crochet, so that pulls it down here. So if you see on this version, these are these shell type stitches here, and then our 2 single crochet here that let it fall down, and then it goes back out to a point, back down, out to a point, etc, etc. So on to our next chain 6, we're going to be doing 2 half double crochet, and then a double crochet, a chain 2, a double crochet, getting ever so tangled today, I don't know why, and then 2 half double crochet, all in that same chain 6 space. And then we need to bring it back down, so we're going to be doing 2 single crochet in this next one, and that's what we need to keep repeating all the way around. So they're up and a down, and then bring it right down. Here we are at the last chain 6 space, and we're going to work our 2 single crochet into there, and then we just need to slip stitch into that first stitch to join. And at this point, whatever you're doing, you're going to break the yarn because we're now ready to add our green in, or our colour F. For round 6 we are going to be joining colour F into any of these chain 2 spaces. So pop that yarn through and then chain 1, and then we're going to work 3 half double crochet into that chain 2 space. Now once we've got those 3 stitches in, we need to chain 1, and then we need to skip the next 3 stitches. So you'll see it's the 3 stitches that create the other side, so the downward part of that shell stitch there, and the next stitch we come across is a single crochet of these 2 single crochets we have. So it's always that first single crochet we're aiming for, and we're going to work a double crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet in that single crochet there. And then we're going to do the same as we've just done there. We're going to work a double crochet, a chain 1, and a double crochet there in that next stitch. Then we're ready to chain 1, and we're going to skip the next 3 stitches, so 1, 2 and 3, which are the upward stitches of this next shell, and then into that chain 2 we're going to work 3 half double crochet stitches. Oh, my yarn is wandering all over the place, sorry about that. Then we're ready to chain 1, skip the next 3 because we're going to carry on and we're going to repeat exactly what we've done there. We're going to skip 3, we're then going to work a double crochet, chain 1, double crochet all into that same place, and then the same in the next stitch, double crochet, chain 1, double crochet, and then chain 1. And then we're back to repeating that, skip 3 stitches and then work your 3 half treble into the chain 2 space, and you carry on repeating that all the way until you get back to these 3 half double crochets that we've done here. So go ahead and do that, and I'll meet you back and we'll be ready to swap to our white, so our colour A, and work the border rounds. There we are, that last chain 1, and we're ready to slip stitch into that first stitch, and we're going to break the yarn of course because we're going to change colour here. Right, so now we're ready for our colour A border rounds, and what we're going to be doing here is joining to the first, any of this pattern sequence here, the first stitch of these 3 half double crochets. So we could join in this one here, or you can ping back here and join to this one here. You've got 1, 2, 3 half double crochet together there. So join to that first stitch of that set of 3. And we're going to chain 1, then we're going to half double crochet in that same stitch, and then in the next stitch is going to be a point that we have here. So we're going to work a double crochet, a chain 1 and a double crochet all into that same stitch, and that's going to stand up and stand proud and help us to find where the points of our hexagon are going to be. Then we're going to work a half double crochet in the next 3 stitches. Now in these rounds, and in fact all of the blanket, the chains all count as stitches when we're working. So a half double crochet in the next 3, so that's a 1, and this chain here is 2, and this stitch here is 3. Now we come across this chain 1 space here, and what we're going to do is going to work 2 half double crochet into that chain 1 space, and then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and get to our next chain 1 space and work 2 half double crochet in there. Then we need to work in the next 1, 2 and 3, we're going to work a half double crochet in those. And then we've got ourselves to a point. So we're going to work a double crochet, a chain 1 and a double crochet. And then as you see, we turn the corner and we're going to repeat what we did. We're going to work a half double crochet in the next 3. 1, 2 and 3. And then that ball of yarn is very distracting, sorry. We're going to work 2 half double crochet in this next chain 1 space. And then we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and work 2 half double crochet in that chain 1. And then we're going to work a half double crochet in the next 3. And now we make our next point. And so you see, you just carry on working in that way all the way around until we get back to the beginning. And of course, that half double crochet there will create the 3rd stitch of your 3 half double crochets, but I'll show you that when we get here. So carry on around and I'll meet you back at the last stitch that you come to. So there we are. I have made the last 2 half double crochet into that chain 1 space, and now I've got 2 stitches left, a double crochet and then a chain to work a half double crochet into, and that is that round complete. And then all we need to do is slip stitch into that first stitch to join, and we're ready for the next round. Now to begin round 8, we are going to slip stitch our way to the chain 1 space, to the corner, because it's much easier to start from that point. And we're going to chain 1, and then we're going to work 2 double crochet, a chain 1 and 2 double crochet all into that chain 1 space. So that's what that point will look like there for you. And then what we're going to do is we're going to skip the next stitch, which is the double crochet from the round below. And then we've got these 10 half double crochet stitches. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into there, 6, 7 into that same chain 1, 8, 9 and 10. And in each of those stitches we are going to be doing a double crochet into the back loop only. So we're going to be finding the back loop only by swiveling back here. We've got the front loop and the back loop and the 3rd loop, so we're going to swivel over and we're going to find that right behind. It's the furthest loop that you can see. Swivel it over and pop that there. Now some people term the 3rd loop and the back loop differently depending on whether you're going in rounds or in rows, etc, etc, but I find it just easier to say the furthest loop away from you here in those 10 stitches. So now we've done those 10 stitches. Let me just check. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yes, it felt right. We have got a stitch left over of this V-stitch here, and we're going to skip that one. So that double crochet there we don't do anything with, and now we work into that chain one space, and we're going to work the same point as we did back here. It's going to be 2 double crochet, a chain one, and then 2 double crochet. And then we're back to skipping that stitch and then working right over into the back loops of the 10 half double crochets that we have. So work a double crochet into the back loop of all of those. And that's the repeat for this round. So if you want to go ahead and meet me back, and we'll join and we will work the final round together. Now here we are at the last stitch, and all we need to do now is slip stitch into that one to finish the round. And just like we did before, we're now going to slip stitch into that chain one space to begin our final round, round 9. Now hopefully round 9 will feel very familiar because it's very, very similar to the last round that we did. We're going to chain one and we're going to make an even bigger point here. We're going to work 3 double crochet into that chain one space. We're going to chain one and then we're going to work another 3 double crochet into that chain one space. How many have I done? 2. I was thinking about the next bit while I was doing that and then lost count. So that's what that point and all the other points will look like. So 3 double crochet, chain one and 3 double crochet. And now what we're going to do is we're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and then you're going to work into the next 10 stitches. So it's the same center 10 stitches that we did, but you'll see in this, just in the instructions, it tells you that we're going to work into the back bar because we still want to, as you see on here, push those stitches forward. We want to push them away from us. So what we're going to be doing is, controversially, I don't know if they've ever done this before, turn it over and work into this back bar here. So we've got the front and the back loop of the stitch, and then you've got these back bars running along here. Let me take my hook out and I'll show you another one of them. So we have our front loop here, we have our back loop here, and most of the time if you're working with normal stitches, they're the only options that you have. But I think this back bar here is a great option. So you can see them just running underneath the back loop here. Now, if you don't like this and if you feel like it's too fiddly, then don't worry, just go into the back loop, but you'll get a slightly different look on your motifs than I have, but not a huge difference. So if you don't enjoy doing it, then don't worry. But if you do get the hang of it, it looks really, really fabulous. So we're going to skip the next 2, then find this back bar and work a double crochet in the back bar of the next 10 stitches. So that's 1. And find that back bar, 2, and just work along for the next 10 stitches. Here's that back bar here. And when you've done it, you'll see whether you've got the right one, because you'll see that you've got this V running across the front here, or not. If you haven't, then you've not found the right one. But it doesn't matter. As long as you are consistent with where you do put your stitch, it doesn't matter. So now we've done those 10, we're going to skip the next 2 stitches and then work our next point into that chain one space. So here comes that rogue ball of yarn. 1, 2, and 3. And then we chain 1 and we work another 3 into that same chain 1 space. And that sets the round for us. We're now going to work into the back bar of the next 10, having skipped 2. Then we work into the back bar of the next 10, and we just repeat around, putting our points and our 10s in place, and then we'll be ready to finish the entire motif off. That's the last stitch completed of the round, and we just need to slip stitch into this first one to join. Now I always tuck my ends to the back here. Now there is a really neat trick to make them look much neater than that, but we don't really need to worry because every single one of these stitches is going to be covered when we join them, and we join them with a flat slip stitch, and it makes it look really, really neat and tidy. So that is our motif done. And so you need to make the 12 in the pattern that it instructs you to. But what I would say is, if you can manage to, make sure that you weave in your ends of each as you go. Now the magic ring there, you see how well, get the right end and pop your finger down and pull it down tight before we weave this end in. And just scoop your way around these stitches, making sure that you break through some of the yarn because you want to make sure that it gets covered. And make sure that you break through a strand of yarn or two as well, because that will help keep it nice and secure. So weave in those ends, make all those full motifs, and then come and find me again and we will make the half hexagons together.